We're live right now. Hey everyone, hope you guys are all doing well. We're going to be getting started soon. I have Joel with me from AudioEye. We look forward to talking about accessibility and SEO today. So let's wait a few minutes, or more so like another minute or so, and then we'll get this thing started. Let us know where you guys are coming from. Leave a comment in the chat. Let us know your name, what city you're from, what company. Really happy that you could all join us here today. So let's see what we have in the chat. All right. From Quay, we have Phil from Echo, David, Divya, Tony, Brian. I think people are saying they're hearing the echo. I don't know if it's... Do you have headphones, Joel? Maybe that'll help. Can you guys hear echo now? Nope. Can you still hear us, Joel? Perfect. All right, Joel, you ready? I'm about to kick this thing off. This is going to be fun. He's just putting on his headphones. Let's wait a little minute and we'll go from there. Who else do we have here? We have Jenny, Paulina from Ireland. Ireland's a beautiful place. Nick. Hey, everyone. Sheila. Jefferson. Brian. I appreciate all of you guys coming in, joining us, especially on Thursday, middle of the workday. I know you guys are all busy and have stuff to do. All right, Joel, you ready?
I'm set. Let's
Perfect.
do it.
I'm going to share my screen and then let's dive right in. Let's go into view full screen, enter full screen. You guys see my slide? Joel, you see the slide?
Got it.
Perfect. All right. Hey, everyone. Today, we're going to be breaking down how to protect and grow your business with digital accessibility and SEO. A little bit about me. I'm Neil Patel, co-founder of Ubersuggest, Neil Patel Digital, my ad agency. Work with a lot of big brands. We've driven 800 plus million visitors to a lot of our clients. Work with, people like Facebook and Google, the platforms as well. So we see things from multiple sides. We've helped a lot of businesses just grow online. The point I'm trying to make here is not to brag. I don't think I'm the best. I don't think, I'm successful. It's more so I just have a lot of experience. I've seen what works, what doesn't. So when Joel and I break down what you should do to grow your business in 2021, just make sure you pay attention. Some of these things may seem obvious to you, some of them may not, but if you take the time and implement them, you should see results. And as I mentioned, work with quite a few brands. There's also Joel here from AudioEye. Joel, you want to give a little bit of background on yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I joined AudioEye last year to lead up the product organization, and we've been helping many companies, large and small, address digital accessibility across a wide range of industries and professions. So super excited to be here today with you, Neil, to raise awareness for this crucial and important topic for all of you digital marketers out there.
Yeah, and just for all you guys who are here listening and participating, keep in mind the big thing with accessibility is so many people are on the web these days. They have no choice due to things like COVID. You want to make sure just everything is compatible for anyone who's viewing your site. And it's not just about, hey, I need to do accessibility because other people are. It's more so you need to do it because it allows everyone to have an amazing experience online. So let's dive right in. Chapter 1, why does SEO and digital accessibility matter?
Yeah, so digital accessibility, you can think of it as, an extension of physical accessibility. So this year we're celebrating the 30th year anniversary of the American Disabilities Act, which really brought to the fold the need for accessibility in the business setting as well as in any public setting. So if you think about, in terms of physical buildings where business owners needed to provide a dedicated parking space for people with disabilities, or as we say, ramps and rails in a building. That's exactly what we're talking about here. Excuse me. With websites and mobile apps and and documents and content online. So we really need to focus on making the web more accessible for people with disabilities, just like we've been doing in the physical world.
Yep.
And so when we talk about digital accessibility and why it matters, earlier this year, the CDC published a report that said 1 in 4 Americans have some form of disability. And for the first time, they're starting to include the elderly population. And so I think when most people think about digital accessibility, they think about people who may be visually or audibly impaired. But in fact, it actually extends well beyond that. There's a broad spectrum of motor disabilities as well as cognitive disabilities that can impair or impact the way people experience the web. So yeah, go ahead, Neil.
And sorry about that. One thing to note here, which is really funny, yesterday, I set up my mom with the new iPhone, okay? And it has a bigger screen. It's the iPhone 11 Max. Technically, it's not new. It's a year-old model. But she was happy with it. And you know what's funny? My mom has decent eyes. She wears reading glasses. But for the first time, on her phone, and my mom isn't even 70. She's, I believe she's 64. I turned on the accessibility on the iPhone, and I zoomed in on all the text sizes, bolded the letters, and my mom was in heaven. For once, she felt that she could clearly see everything on her iPhone. And keep in mind, she can drive. She doesn't have too many visual problems. But I agree with you on the elderly part. There's so many older people that are coming online, like my parents that are now buying from Amazon and sites like that. And sometimes they struggle to just see stuff, right? And it's just having your website compatible, I think it will make a huge difference in conversions in the long run.
Totally. So, as you can see, this is a very large, and in fact, it is the largest, population of underrepresented populations in the world. So 1 billion people worldwide have some form of disability. 61 million in the US have some form of disability. You can see all the numbers here. What I want you to pay attention to, though, is this $8 trillion number in the left-hand corner, because that actually represents the disposable income of not only people with disabilities themselves, but like you said, Neil, their family members or friends who they also are, purchasing or buying decisions for. And so, this being the holiday season, think about, grandparents buying for grandchildren who may, have low sight or be, have some sort of impairment. If they can't, use your website, or if it's not accessible to them, they're not going to want to buy from likely from you. So that's a big number to address if you're selling your products online.
Yeah, it's massive.
And so just kind of, segueing into this next slide, just to go a little bit deeper on that. Like I said, there's a ton of spending power out there. This number came out of a Forrester report and research that they conducted a year or two ago. And it's only growing. I mean, the baby boomer population is growing in size. It's one of the largest groups with disposable income, and they're aging fast, and so like I said, it's not just the, what people may traditionally think as people with disabilities, but it's really a much, broader spectrum than that. And so, so if you're not really making your website accessible, then, you're going to probably see a higher bounce rate from this particular population for sure.
What's hilarious is when my dad shops online, if the text on a website is hard to read, he goes to another website automatically. Like that's one of the first things he does. He just automatically jump ships. And it makes sense, right? There's that elder demographic. If you look at the studies, they also control the majority of the wealth in the United States as well. And in general in the world, right? They're the ones with the real spending power.
Yeah. And so, when we start talking about how digital accessibility matters, not only for the on-site, experience, we start talking about how also this, overlays and impacts SEO. And of course, Neil's the expert on that, but there's a lot of commonalities here. And so when you look at things like, page structure or images or titles or navigation, for people who are already, working on SEO, if there's a few simple kind of things you can do, for example, like installing AudioEye for one, to actually make that automatic. And so you're going to get benefits by updating, these tags and this structure, not only for SEO, but also for accessibility. So we've seen a lot of interest headed this way, not only from small businesses, but also larger business as well, who, ultimately want to address, both of these areas in one go. So you don't have to reopen your code base or engage, kind of multiple vendors to address these issues.
So Google searches is growing by the day. There's so many people that are still coming online, and Google has been visited 62.19 billion times this year. Just think about that number, 62.19 billion times this year. That number is greater than the whole population of the whole world. Now, granted, a lot of us go to Google multiple times, and that's why that number is so large, but still, Google is massive. More people are going online, and that's why they have 92% of the search market share, and 46% of product searches begin on Google. In general, on a daily basis, Google processes 3.5 billion searches a day, and that's from 2019. So I bet that number is even higher now. And e-commerce is projected to grow year by year. If you look at Amazon, right, they say it could be the first $10 trillion company. Will it happen? I have no clue. Time will tell. But global commerce sales worldwide have reached over $3.46 trillion a year, and e-commerce revenues are projected to grow by 6.54 trillion US dollars by 2023. That's a massive amount of spending that's just happening. When you look at what happened this year with Cyber Monday, Black Friday, it's some of the biggest spending that we've ever seen. And, when I looked at the 2019 numbers, e-commerce, not just what you're buying on Amazon, but even hiring lawyers online and all that kind of transaction stuff that you do online, was only 12% of the total spend. It still has a very long way to go, and you're just going to continue to see it go up and up, as you can see in this graph. So what is SEO? I know most of you guys already know this, but if you're just starting off, SEO is a process of optimizing your online content and website so a search engine can place your site at the top of search results for any given keyword. And when you think about SEO, at the top, you see some paid ads, and sure, you'll click on them every once in a while, but roughly 77% of people look at the non-quote unquote sponsored listings. That's the free listings. Whether Google's just giving you the information right then and there when you're saying, hey, what's the weather in Los Angeles? Or whether it's an article that ends up breaking down, how to install a toilet or fix a garage door or buy a purse or whatever it may be. And it's so much so that people are clicking on the organic listings. It's not just there, but they're clicking mainly on the ones that are in the top first position. And then it drastically goes down from 2, 3, 4, 5. As my team says, the best place to hide a dead body is on page 2 of Google. I hope no one's hiding dead bodies, but so, and when we look at our site, we're generating roughly 10 million visits a month. Some months are lower, like the Novembers are lower, the Decembers are lower because we're in B2B, and some months are higher, like the June, Julys, the middle of the year, surprisingly do better, especially the Januaries of the, each year usually boom for us. But all the stuff we're doing has just been growing our traffic. And one of the things that we've done that's grown our traffic over the years is accessibility. And it's just really helped with our numbers. And more importantly, we've really seen it help improve our conversion rates.
Yeah. So, how do you improve digital accessibility? And really it breaks down to, 3 major areas. There's the World Wide Web Consortium has published standards called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And so what we're about to talk about next is, how do you improve digital accessibility and a little bit more on why it matters. So let's get into it. Especially in this, time, brands are aligning themselves with, with social good more and more, especially with everything that's been going on this year with the Black Lives Matter movement, with LGBTQ communities. Your consumers and your customers are starting to look at, your website as a representation of whether or not, you're really socially aware. And so a lot of these leading brands are starting to be penalized or look at, digital accessibility in this way. And your consumers are considering, whether they go with your product or somebody else's, your competitors, based on if you're actually, doing the right thing, in my opinion, of digital accessibility. And so what's different about us is that we take a hybrid approach. And so, we've been in the business now for over 15 years, and we've established, a number of automated tests, as well as, human assisted tests to make sure that your website's accessible. And so it's a huge library of testing. And there's other, products out there that certainly can test your website. Some are free and open source. But none are as complete as AudioEye. But that's only half the solution. The other part of the solution is actually fixing the issues. And so we have a number of IAAP certified experts who can remotely log into your website or into your digital experience and truly make sure that it's accessible, both with our automation, which we have machine learning and AI for, as well as with humans who actually, can remote log into your website and update the, the HTML or the CSS where needed. So really, if you go to our website, you can sign up for AudioEye today, and you can install JavaScript on your website securely. You don't have to make any design changes to your website whatsoever, which is really nice. A lot of, web designers that you'll go to will say, hey, we have to completely redesign the site to make it accessible from the ground up. And, you can do that, and that's fine. Yet, just like in the physical world, we shouldn't expect every business owner to tear down their brick and mortar store and rebuild from the ground up. Like, there is a way to retrofit, your website or your store to be accessible, thankfully with technology, right? And so we can do that by, installing the JavaScript, and that's where we go to work. We start testing your site, and we can actually go to the next slide, and I could talk through that a little bit more. Actually, we'll go over back to you, Neil, I think.
Yeah. So, this is what it ends up looking like. And if I'm not mistaken, you guys still have a free plan, so people can just get started for free.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so it's just think of it like Google Analytics. We all put Google Analytics on our website. So if you notice on the Neil Patel website, I have accessibility JavaScript. So it's just like Google Analytics. If you're using Google Tag Manager, you just copy and paste it in. You'll see something like that. And then from there, you can end up clicking, and then people can end up making adjustments, assuming they have accessibility issues.
Yeah, I mean, just, riffing off of that a little bit, and we'll come to this slide in a moment, is, that first step, you're right. It's a great example is Google Analytics. It's, first understanding the language of, websites, right, with visitors, bounce rates, click-through rates, all of that. It's the same in digital accessibility. It's understanding, what is a WCAG error, what are some of the key things to understand to make sure, you're making your site accessible. And for that, we provide an accessibility score 0 to 100 to make it even more simple for people really to understand where they're at. And so, another reason why you should do this is because, look, I mean, there's a legal compliance requirement here, especially in the US, and expanding rapidly in other parts of the world. So the Canada has the AODA. In Israel, they have compliance there. In Europe, they also have a charter there that requires your website to be accessible, just like in the physical world. There's been a number of companies. At the end of last year, we saw Domino's try to, frankly, not make their experience accessible. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was still shot down. And so you can see that the number of cases have been climbing. We're not even, this was taken actually about halfway through the year, and we've already seen this growing even faster. Especially with COVID and a lot of shops, frankly, moving fully to the digital space. So I expect to see that more.
Yeah, what's crazy is I've had a few friends who've gone sued for their sites not being accessible, and then they have to end up paying out like 30, 40 grand in legal fees and settlements and stuff like that. And I'm assuming for the Domino's, it's probably way worse.
Yeah, it's not a great place to be for sure. And so, just coming back to explicitly like what we do is, like I said, the second you install our JavaScript on your website, you're going to get things on day one, like our accessibility toolbar, an accessibility statement, our trusted certification, and we're going to start monitoring your website immediately. And that's actually the first step in terms of compliance or conformance, is the ability of knowing that you have a problem. And then what the ADA or what they look for is making sure that you're actually taking the steps to fix your site. And that actually a lot of the times will deter a lot of people who might serve a demand letter, a lot of lawsuits in essence. And so, over the next few weeks, few months, we'll continue to test your website as we make these updates securely, right? So we're testing it on our site first before we publish it to your website. When we find issues, we'll fix them right away if we can with our automation or with our team. Yet at certain times, we may find, structural components that need to be fixed really at the source. And for that, we actually will provide you a detailed report that says, here's exactly, in the line of code, exactly where, and what to do to fix the issue. And so we'll do that as well. And like I said, we continuously monitor your site, and we also provide training and support if you are to get served a demand letter, or if you are to have a lawsuit on your hands. We can help you with the legal support there as well. And so, like I said, it's really a straightforward experience. We have, like I said, this accessibility score, which is an aggregate of essentially the number of passing issues divided by the total issues we found. It's important to note that there are some, major issues that, are blocking your customers from accessing your site and being able to use your site, that you need to fix right away. And there's other issues that, are things that can, you can fix over time, like, because they're not really, blocking the customer from, doing what they need to do, but you should most definitely fix them when you can. And so that's the accessibility score. And then what we also provide is what we call the sustainable testing and remediation plan. This is something you'll only get from AudioEye. It's basically, a document, just like you would if you got audited by the IRS, right? You need to produce your tax return and your receipts and say, this is everything, that I've done to ensure that I'm paying, my fair share of taxes. It's the exact same thing in the accessibility world. If you were to get served a demand letter, you can take this plan, print it out, and take it to the demand letter and say, this is exactly, we know, we're aware of it, digital accessibility, and this is exactly what we're doing to address the issue ongoing. And that's ultimately a lot of times what will get the lawsuit, dropped or removed.
Yeah, it's funny. So the thing on the left, for all of you guys thinking, think of that like as your Google page speed score, but for accessibility. And then the right side, of course, helps you if you ever run into trouble. But think of the left side like a tool. You know how you check your Google page speed, you want to make sure it's doing well, or in Uber says you check your SEO score. It's similar about for accessibility. And when you do all of this in the long run and even short run, it can help you with your SEO. So how does Google see your site? When you go on Google, you type a search, you'll see something like this. But this is what we see as a user. Google, on the flip side, sees your site more like something like this. Not exactly, this is a prettier version of that, but they're seeing letters, numbers, code, all these weird characters that you're probably like, what the heck is this? But that's how Google ends up reading your website. But what's coming out in 2021 is the page experience algorithm update. Now, they're mainly rolling it out on mobile. Eventually, I do believe it's going to end up happening to desktop devices. But what this update is all about is how can they ensure that your website is the best experience for users? Because if Google is ranking sites that aren't the best experience, sure, in their algorithm, they're talking about things like backlinks and keywords and internal links and external links. But at the end of the day, if you meet all those requirements, but someone clicks on your listing and they're like, this page is crap, Google doesn't want to show it. It doesn't matter if that page has 1 million links. They want to rank the pages at the top that users love the most. And to get there, you need to make sure that your website is compatible for all users, not just some. As Joel pointed out earlier, that it's 26% or 25%? I think it's 25 or 26%.
26.
26% of the people roughly have some sort of accessibility issue, whether it's vision impairment or hearing or whatever it may be. Just like my mom, it's people that you wouldn't think. My mom can walk. She doesn't need to have a wheelchair. She doesn't need to go up the elevator in a building. My mom can read. She can drive. There's nothing wrong with her. But when she's looking at devices like this phone in my hand, I have the iPhone mini. My mom can't use that. It's too small for her. And there's a lot of people who have issues. So you're going to end up cutting out a big portion of your audience if you're not making your website and your web pages accessible, which in the long run can decrease your rankings. And when you look at page experience and where it lies, there's search engine optimization, there's accessibility. But if you do what's best for users and search engines, that's what's going to cause you not only to get more traffic, but also more conversions as well. You need to think about your customer journey. What are the most important pages on your site? What do those people want to experience when they're on those pages? Just because you have this goal of selling a product or generating a lead, the customer may have a different intention when they're landing on your page. So you need to think about that experience as well. And don't get me wrong, I'm in the same shoes as you. I'm a marketer. I want to sell. I want to generate leads. But of course, at the end of the day, if you do what's best for people, in the long run, you'll do the best, whether it's from SEO or conversions or revenue generation. What would be magic for them is things like, hey, do they come to your website and get the experience that they're looking for? Are they delighted? The great type of experiences where they get those aha moments or they get what they're looking for really quickly, that's what's going to cause them to talk more about your business. Your word of mouth marketing is going to increase that brand awareness. When you grow your brand awareness, your rankings go up. A big factor in Google's algorithm is brands. As Matt Cutts, the ex-head of WebSpam at Google once said, they have a way of determining, hey, New York Times IRS on this side and maybe Joe the plumber on this other side. And they know if you're a more trusted website. And a lot of that is based on brands. The more people that talk about you, the more people that mention your brand, the more people that are Googling your brand name, the higher you end up ranking in the long run. And you have to create that series of experiences to create that amazing brand. But if your website isn't reachable for roughly 26% of the people, and I know your website may have a younger audience that may not have as many issues, but people of all ages, sadly have some type of handicap. Not everyone, but I know people who, are 5 years old and they have handicaps, and I know people who are 80 and 90, and hopefully one day there's cures for all this stuff, but for now there's not, and I wish there was. But you need to create a set of experiences and expectations so that way you can help people no matter who they are or if they have a disability or they don't have a disability. The main things that I really want to emphasize on is you need to create amazing touch points with your potential customers. So when people are coming to your website, what kind of emotions do you want to convey? What kind of experience do you want to convey? Whatever you can do to delight the user is what's going to allow you to rank the highest in the long run. And I want to emphasize long run here because I talk to so many people when it comes to SEO and they're like, I'm doing all the right things. My competition's doing some spammy stuff and they're ranking above me. And this is why Google constantly makes algorithm updates. They make over 8 or 9 algorithm updates a day on average when you look at their history. And yeah, most of them are small, but they continually make these tweaks because they want to fine tune it and do what's best for users and put that at the top. And when you're optimizing your experience, it's not just about, hey, are my URLs friendly or my title tag? Do I get a lot of links? Is my load time fast, which improves, the experience, but also is my website usable for anyone who's searching Google? And that's a huge aspect. And not just is it usable on desktop devices. I think that's easier to be done than these little small mobile devices that a lot of people aren't taking into consideration. And what most people don't know is more than half the searches that are happening on Google are from mobile devices. They're actually not from big screen computer devices. Another thing that you'll want to do on a regular basis to improve your rankings is update your pages on a regular basis. I write right now roughly 1 article a week, literally 1 article a week. Now, when you go to the neilpatel.com blog, you'll notice that there's a lot of articles at the top And just like, Neil, I thought you only published 1 article a week. Well, my team is updating roughly 3 articles a day. So think about this math for a minute. I'm writing 1 a week, which is roughly 4 a month. My team is updating 90 a month. And when we update them, we put them back at the top so you know that they're updated. And by doing this, we're generating more and more traffic. And that's a key part if you really want to grow your authority and your rankings online. There's a lot of blogs on the internet, over 1 billion. If you want to do well, you can't just write content. You need to keep it updated and fresh because Google doesn't want to rank the old stuff, even if it has 1 million links, because if it's outdated, that's going to be harmful information to other people. So here's how you optimize the user experience. You want to optimize your speed and reduce 400 errors, right? There's a lot of 400 errors out there. And funny enough, in AudioEye, how many errors do you guys check?
Over 400.
That's right. Automatic, right? That's a magic number, right? So you want to reduce your 404 errors, but you also, more importantly, want to reduce the 400 plus errors that AudioEye checks for. You can do it manually, or you can just install their JavaScript for free and just get started. Funny enough, my developer, Sysman, tried to do a lot of it manually, and it became a pain because as we started releasing more pages, more content, we started introducing more errors. So that's why we literally just started automating it with your JavaScript. And you want to compare your experience to your competition. When you look at your web page, when someone's coming there, is it a better experience than your competition, or is it a worse? Really be neutral on this, right? Don't just say, oh, this is my site, I love my brand more, so it's better. Really put yourself in your customer's shoes and compare the experience. Analyze, optimize your design, the speed. Recommend that you install the Ubersuggest Chrome extension. It'll tell you all the site errors. Install the AudioEye toolbar as well. It'll help. So when you do these things, it'll help improve the experience, which should increase your rankings in the long run, especially when the page experience algorithm update takes place. Then, of course, you'll want to do a site audit in Ubersuggest. Sorry about that. In Ubersuggest, I'm going to actually get a quick drink of water. I don't know what's stuck in my throat, but again, sorry about that. But in Ubersuggest, you want to click on the site audit navigation option in the left-hand bar, put in your URL, and check to make sure your pages are healthy, they're not broken, they don't have issues. And just by fixing all this, you're going to rank higher in the long run. And when you scroll down in that report, same report, you'll also see how fast your site loads on both desktop and mobile. And the quicker it ends up loading, the better off you are as well. Then there's the on page. You want to make sure that you're using the right metadata, headings, body content, alt tags, all the stuff that the SEO site audit report analyzes. You can also see a lot of this from the Ubersuggest Chrome extension as well. Another thing that I love doing is I like providing sidebar links to my most popular pages. Not for SEO, and sure, it does help because that's internal links, but they're my most popular pages because people like visiting them. And if you just link to them within your sidebar, that also creates a better user experience as well, which makes your pages more accessible or user-friendly for people who, are coming and they're just trying to find what they're looking for. And the chances are they're looking for the same stuff that everyone else is, hence your most popular pages. And you can add a link to them in your sidebar. It's really easy. You can use the anchor text that's the most relevant to the page. Don't just pick the anchor text that's rich. Pick the ones that are most relevant so that way you're providing a better experience. I also recommend that you sign up for Google Search Console, and they'll tell you your traffic over time, if you have errors or issues, and what you need to do to fix them as well. And then within there, I recommend you optimize your click-through rate, right? Because everything is about user experience. If you're ranking on page 1 of Google and someone else is ranking on page 1 of Google, but they're ranking one position underneath you, if Google sees that they have less backlinks than you, their page isn't as quote-unquote Google-friendly, but they're getting double the amount of clicks because people are saying, hey, we like their copy, we like their title tag. They're just like, that tells Google, more users find this page more useful, hence they're clicking through on it, so maybe we should rank them higher. That's an example of user signals that Google's using to determine what a page should rank and where it should rank. So you want to maximize that click-through rate. Another example of a user signal is, let's say my dad goes to a page. He's buying e-commerce products. If he goes there and a website isn't usable for him because he's getting older, my dad's 70 plus, he just clicks the back button. And if Google sees that a lot of people click the back button and he goes to the next site and he's hoping for something that's more accessible, and he goes to the next site and he finds it and he sticks around and stays high time on site, low bounce rate, eventually purchases, that tells Google, maybe more users prefer the next listing and maybe we should move that higher up. So if you want to increase your click-through rate and get more people to click on your listings, you want to use some of these words. We found that how-tos, free, you, tips, all these words and phrases tend to cause more clicks, so you should consider using them within your title tag. And then once you adjust it and you add some of those keywords, just go back into Search Console, rerun your URL, and what you'll find is within 30 days, your rankings will slowly start getting up. So now let's dive into optimizing your experience for SEO and digital accessibility. So branding, brands matter. Brand queries affect rankings. The better off and the stronger your brand is, the better off you're going to be. Remember, we talked about Google knows if you're New York Times or IRS. Technically, New York Times and IRS would sit on one side, but like Joe the Plumber or Neil's Fish website will probably sit on the other side. And the stronger your brand, the higher rankings will be over time. So what is a brand? A brand is just a perception, and perception will match reality over time. Sometimes it'll be ahead, other times it'll be behind, but a brand is simply a collective impression someone has about a product. And this is Elon Musk, founder of Tesla, SpaceX. He's built many amazing brands, not just SpaceX and Tesla. He also built PayPal as well. A brand takes a long time to build. It's not easy. You got to start slow. Technology, accessibility, that's more of the crawling side, creating a good experience, having that content, taking governance into matter, optimizing your on-site, off-page, getting into page search, SEO, email marketing, CRO. All this stuff will eventually help you build a bigger and bigger brand over time. And digital accessibility and SEO, it can be hard by doing it all by yourself.
It can be really hard, in fact. And if you think about, I think a lot of people look at websites as this in development as this static, release. Like I'm going to launch a website and then I'm never going to have to touch it again, And so a lot of the way the industry looks at digital accessibility today is, doing a check just before, as part of the QA process before it goes live in production. The reality is that, as you said, like you're publishing, tons of blogs every day from you and your team. So it's very dynamic. And so imagine, your team, your development team, your web dev team having to go in there and ensure that all the images that if you embed in your blog, or if there's a PDF that you need to download, for example, we also do that, by the way, remediate, and we can fix PDFs because it's also digital content, or a video. All of those different, types of digital content, need to be checked and ensured that they're accessible to people with disabilities. And so, we're monitoring millions of pages per day. There's, tens of millions of people who are clicking on our toolbar per month. So lots and lots of people depend on this. And then we're looking at billions of things that were components on a website that we're fixing. So forms, buttons, structure, images, PDFs, like all of this stuff. It's actually quite massive. And so, we test for all of these things continuously. And like I said, we solve a lot of these issues on day one. So the second you install, AudioEye's JavaScript, you'll see this a little bit later in a demo. We actually allow your site to be much more accessible than it ever has been before, out of the box. So it's extremely exciting. So, it's been an amazing year for digital accessibility. I'm really pleased to see it, not just for AudioEye, but for our industry in general. And more people are becoming aware. And like you said, Neil, I think it has a lot to do with the environment we're in, and that brands matter more than ever, And so if your brand is not, really associated with digital accessibility, you're really, kind of lagging behind, in my opinion. So if you want to be a front runner and really show, your support, and be part of, a brand that, stands for something, like these brands do here, then, then you really should consider AudioEye. We're very secure. So we serve, the FCC.gov. You go to the FCC right now, you'll see AudioEye there. ADP, the Social Security Administration, tech companies.
Cool. It's like,
what's that?
Getting the FCC to use your stuff is cool.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, and it's just crucial. I mean, they see the value, and to me, that's just an endorsement of the fact that this is hard stuff to do, right? The FCC has plenty of developers. ADP has plenty of, technical people. Samsung is a technology company. And they know they need our help to do it because, like I said, we have the most experts, who are manually looking at these tests and manually looking at these fixes daily to ensure these sites stay accessible.
Yeah, plus you can just get started by adding a JavaScript. It's easy.
And so, like I said, we've been working on this issue and rather this solution for years. I saw in the chat someone mention, how many people might be searching with voice. That's definitely a trend we're seeing. And so
it's actually 50%. According to ComScore, over 50% of the searches now are voice search.
Yeah, and so if you think about assistive technology, what is it really? It's a tool to read your website and basically interpret it in terms of voice. And so, if you make your website accessible, you're really making your website machine readable. In fact, for our premium customers, we actually provide a player that will read your website aloud to a customer, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, and we trust it with our visitors. It's like our version of Google Analytics. We use AudioEye just like we use Google Analytics for our tracking of our traffic. We use AudioEye for our accessibility. It's a journey that I want you to also experience. It's not hard, and the best of all is people like my parents will then be able to use more of the web, as well as with other people with accessibility issues as well.
So like Neil and I said, like, it's really as simple as adding our JavaScript to your website. It's completely secure. We have all of the right security and compliance capabilities in place. So we completely secure the data. There's and we recognize personal identifiable information. So your data is secure and no one's going to touch that. And like Neil said, I mean, it's as easy as adding JavaScript, and then we can go to work and start making your website accessible on day one, starting with the toolbar, but ultimately increasing your accessibility score very, very quickly. So it's pretty exciting.
Yep. So what I wanted to actually do is show you guys how it works so you guys can end up seeing it on my website. And I'm going to play a quick video so you guys can end up seeing it. And what we found is our conversions went slightly up. I wish it went up 26%, but either way, we still saw increasing conversion, so I was very happy about it.
Hi, everyone. By now, you may be asking yourself, what does AudioEye look like when it's installed on my website? Here we have Neil Patel's beautifully designed website with AudioEye cleanly and securely installed on his site. When your visitors click on the accessibility icon over here, they'll have access to a plethora of tools to make their experience much more accessible. One of the key features is the Visual Toolkit. The Visual Toolkit provides a number of ways to dynamically change the content on your website to make it more accessible to your visitors. For example, your visitors can stop animations for people who are prone to epileptic seizures, and it can also change the font type for people who have dyslexia. It can change the font spacing to make it more readable, as well as the font size to make it larger for people who are also visually impaired. You can also highlight, you can focus your keyboard, and even change the contrast with a single click. How cool is that? AudioEye is a hybrid solution that is comprised of advanced technology, like you can see here, the toolbar, as well as subject matter experts. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. In fact, we're running hundreds of tests to ensure that your website meets the most stringent web content accessibility guidelines. Our solution automatically fixes many of the most common errors and also shows you where manual intervention is needed by our team remotely, where possible, or by your team if it's needed to be fixed at the source by providing a detailed report. Finally, AudioEye's trusted certification ensures your website will remain compliant over its lifetime as we continuously monitor your website. As you can see here, all of the major components are active on Neil Patel's website, making his site accessible to all. Thank you for your time, and now back to the webinar.
All right, so let me go back into the presentation. Now you guys saw how it really works. It's easy. At first, when people told me, hey, you should make your website accessible, I tried to do it all manually. And as I mentioned, it was just too much work. And then we ended up adding JavaScript. When my team first told me about it, I'm like, I'm hesitant because too many people are going to click on it and it's going to decrease my conversions. But we didn't see that. We actually saw the opposite, where it didn't hurt conversions. It helped. So, don't be afraid of making your website more useful and compatible to people with disabilities.
Thanks, Neil. Yeah, no, it's absolutely the case. I mean, it just makes sense. If you can make your website more accessible, more readable, like these folks have here, you would expect that, conversion should go up. And so, as we mentioned before, on the enterprise side with customers and clients like the FCC, I mean, they were trying to do this themselves and they found it to be, not sustainable, right? Which is key for compliance, which is critical. And then, with our friend John at More Creative Studios, he's working with tons of agencies. He's a HubSpot, platinum partner there. And, he's working with lots of his clients. And he also has created a center of excellence for accessibility at his agency. And it sounds like that's working out really well for him because, look, there's not a lot of digital agencies out there right now who really are experts in accessibility. So it's a huge opportunity if you're a digital marketer to really set yourself apart from the others to say, hey, I actually could take your website even further. And so I should probably add Alexander, I think I saw to mention like audio in the chat that AudioEye is great. So thanks, Alex, for mentioning that. But yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Bring up a good point too. I know some of you guys listening in own agencies. It could be something where you consider adding that as a revenue line item. There's not that many agencies that help companies with their accessibility, and it's a great way to increase the revenue on your agencies as well. Mm-hmm. And when you combine accessibility with SEO, as you can see, traffic, it can go up. And accessibility isn't just about accessibility, it's about experience. How can you optimize the user experience, which gets you into Google's page experience algorithm update, which is happening in 2021. So would you like to build marketing experiences that elevate your brand as well as your conversion rates, get more customers from SEO, or increase the profitability and scaling your business quicker? Well, if you want to click on the schedule now button, you should see it, or you can end up going to Neil Patel Digital or npdigital.com/call. So, and you can also contact us if you have any questions as well. And I believe now it's perfect time to get into some Q&A. So let's get started on that. I'm going to stop the screen share. You guys can all see me now. And let's get into some Q&A. So the first question we have is, how far are we from being able to fully communicate with web pages, meaning everything from click-through to ordering using solely voice? And that's from Alexander. We're actually pretty far along. There's tools like Jetson AI that connect with websites and help put you on Alexa, Google Home, Apple Pod. I think it's called Apple Pod. I've never used that one. And they can make it where people can order your products through things like Alexa or some of these devices, but we're actually pretty far along. The next question, and this is for you, Joel, if one does not know how to install JavaScript, is there a plugin for that purpose?
Yeah, there are. We have plugins for a number of these CMS, platforms, including Drupal, including, Shopify, BigCommerce, and we're
WordPress,
building more.
And WordPress as well, right? So, WordPress, Shopify, they got all the big ones. The next one is there reporting issues, for instance, if it's based on machine learning?
No, because the reporting side is a direct measure of the website itself. The machine learning side really only comes in using machine learning image recognition. Then we'll do that. Additionally, we also have a way to do what's called guided remediations. And so think about it with your cell phone. It's like suggested text, right? So you start writing something and it completes the sentence. And so that's how our guided remediations or guided AI will work with the Pro Tools.
And speaking of alt tags, this is a question from Pauline. Do you think that Google will make accessibility as strong as a factor when it comes to ranking in the future, or a strong factor when it comes to ranking in the future? So, Joel mentioned alt tags. Alt tags is something that's used for accessibility. I remember years ago when I got into SEO, there was a guy who I talked to called Gary Grant. And Gary created a company called SEO Inc., which was one of the first SEO agencies back in the day. And his daughter has accessibility issues. So when he was doing SEO, he would make his website, I think it's 503C compliant. Does that sound about right, Joel?
508, Section 508 compliant.
Section 508, there you go, Section 508. And alt tags and things like that were part of it. So Google uses alt tags to figure out where your image should rank. And as they roll out things more like page experience and more older people start coming online more and more, I do believe it is going to be a stronger ranking factor in the future. How much stronger than now? I think it's going to be much more than now. Will it be as strong as links or something like that? I don't know, but I do believe the user experience in the long run will end up dictating if a page ranks or not. The next question, this is from Rebecca. Does optimizing your website for voice search help your accessibility ranking? Actually, this is a good question for you, Joel. Does optimizing your site for voice search using things like schema markup and stuff like that help with your accessibility score?
I mean, what I can speak to directly is making your website, have a better structure that's easy to navigate, the link structure, making sure that there's plenty of, metadata using, in the accessibility, category or space, we use ARIA labels. But think about, voice search similar to assistive technology, right? Like a screen reader. So, I can imagine that if you're following best practices with voice search, there's going to be benefits to the accessibility community as well. So it's definitely something we should look at and explore. But that's what I can assume is going on.
Yeah, and in general, I think optimizing your site for voice is important, whether it's accessibility or not. And the reason being is you can potentially generate a lot more leads or sales through things like Google Home and Alexa in the future. Next question, will AudioEye be accessible for Indian developers? If we're an agency in India and we want to market in the US or UK or other countries that have rules for digital accessibilities and we don't have the feature on our website, will we be penalized? So
yeah, that's right. I mean, the first answer is yes. We could definitely work with agencies all over the world. We have an affiliate and reseller program that's in place. You can go to our website right now and sign up to be approved to become a certified affiliate for AudioEye. And then, if you have a business that's operating in a country, not just the US, but also maybe Canada or Europe or other places like Israel that have requirements to be accessible, they all follow the same WCAG 2.1 guidelines. So absolutely, if you have a business in any of those locations where you accept payment in those locations, then yes, you can be liable for accessibility.
Yeah. The next question is, how can solo entrepreneurs with personal brands increase the speed in which they're ranking higher on Google and reach a bigger audience? I hate to say this, slow and steady wins the race. The way I believe that you grow your brand, you increase your visitor count, is you do what's best for users. You optimize for experience. Like, we don't update our old content because we want better Google rankings. We update our old content, literally 90 articles a month, because we want to make sure that we're giving people the best experience. And if you give them the best experience and the most relevant updated information, that grows your brand, that grows your traffic. If you post on social media and you constantly are doing Instagram lives or Facebook lives or just posting videos on YouTube, again, you're educating, you're helping people out, and you're growing your audience as well. The next question is, can AudioEye help customers in Pakistan? That's the same pretty much response and answer as Joe gave if you're in India. And it doesn't matter where you're based. You can just install that JavaScript on your site, just like if you're running Google Analytics. I don't think you guys discriminate based on region, correct, Joel?
Nope, we don't.
Exactly. The other question, this is from Mo, is AudioEye customizable?
Yes, it is. You can move, just like on Neil's site you saw before, you can move the icon to different areas on your website. You can also change the color of the toolbar itself. And, just as a sneak peek, we're also going to be adding more customizable and beautiful features to make the toolbar look exactly how you'd like to fit the brand style of your company.
The next question is from Jefferson. We are still making a lot of improvements on our website. Would this be a good moment to start using AudioEye? I'm going to take a stab at this and then you can add on, Joe. But think of accessibility as like SEO. You want to start as quick as possible. And adding a JavaScript to your website doesn't affect the improvements you're making. You won't see, if you look at my site, whether I have AudioEye on it or not, my design pretty much stayed the same. As I make changes, which we constantly do each and every single day to our website, it doesn't affect accessibility because AudioEye automatically starts adapting to the changes we're making and adjusts it to make it more user-friendly.
Yeah, and I would just add to that. I mean, the beauty with AudioEye is that we're not just a technology company. We're also a company that you can partner with, right? And so the second you install, AudioEye on your site, you can also reach out to us as you're going through the development process, and we can provide you feedback actually in some ways that you can actually shortcut, so you don't make some of those accessibility errors to go back and fix later. So I would say, yeah, the sooner you want to get started, the better with us, because we'll probably save you a bunch of time and money later on.
Yep. Next question is, how can I get quality backlinks for my website? Content, the more content you write, the higher quality you'll get links. I like using two strategies. The first is I go to Ubersuggest, I go to the content ideas report in the left-hand navigation. I put in keywords to see what content's popular. Take the content that's popular that already has a lot of backlinks and use that content digest. So then, it's beneficial to the readers and a lot of people will link back. The next thing that we do that is really easy is you can go to Code Canyon and find tools that you can white label, put them on your website. You'll find in the long run, tools tend to generate more backlinks than text-based content. And it's easier to do that than it is to just continually write more articles. Just like how AudioEye has a toolbar, we have a Chrome extension with Ubersuggest. They have a software app. We have a software app at Ubersuggest as well. Naturally generates a lot of links. And for our last question, this is to you, Joel. How does AudioEye work with websites that strictly focus on one-on-one or group audio interviews?
I see. Yeah. So, I mean, AudioEye, we have a number of partners that we also work with. So it's for interviews and for other media types, you really want to make sure that there's transcriptions for voice as well as there's captions for video if you do a video interview. So I'd be happy to speak with you on that. But again, that would fall into our professional services category. But yeah, we could certainly work with you for sure.
Cool. Well, everyone, thank you for your time. We appreciate your participation. Thank you guys for being on here. Joel, thank you for your time in doing this. Love the product. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. And best of luck making your sites accessible and increasing your rankings with the page experience algorithm update.
Thank you, everyone.